Episode 2, Indoor Air Quality, with Nate and Chris.
All right, I'm Chris Davidson, one of the owners of Blue Ridge Heating and Air. Been doing HVAC for probably about five years, right, as part of this. Before that, spent 10 years with GE Power Services and the gas turbine services organization, doing various jobs throughout there. Before that, I worked for Kimberly-Clark, making Kleenex facial tissue, Cottonelle bath, products like that, and their manufacturing facilities. Education-wise, have a chemical engineering degree from University of Florida, and also a master's of business administration and a data analytics certificate from Johns Hopkins, and also a certificate of medical engineering from University of Washington. So too much school probably, but there you go. You got the pedigree. A lot of time spent looking at chemicals, understanding chemistry, and how they impact kind of the biochemistry of things, right? Very interested in that. So 4 kids, 2 of them are off out of the house. 2 of them are still in high school. So have a family. It's an important part that they have good indoor air quality and, of course, good food and that kind of stuff to eat. So those kind of things.
Been with Blue Ridge Heating and Air since June of this year. And prior to that, went to school for business. Did 7 years of duct cleaning in Virginia. Did a year of commercial HVAC install in Wilmington, North Carolina, and then moved here. EPA certified, IAQ certified, working on a mold inspector certification, many more certifications is on the way. But married with one little daughter, and air quality is pretty important, as my wife has dealt with a lot of breathing issues from mold and nicotine and over the years, and so we've been. It hits close to home, and I try to treat my customers like I would treat my wife and want her to be treated. So it's important for me.
So you're on the beginning, I'm on the end, huh, of the raising kids.
Yeah.
There you go.
Chris, why don't you tell me some about indoor air quality? That's a buzzword that we see everywhere.
That's a great question, Nate. Probably get that all the time, but what do you want to know? There's so many topics in indoor air quality.
Well, let's break it down to maybe some simple terms for everyone to kind of grasp.
I think if I were a homeowner, right, like what's important to me, right? If I come in and I look at things, your traditional HVAC stuff, what it controls temperature. Mm-hmm. You want to be comfortable, 70, 75 degrees, somewhere in there, maybe 65 if you really like it on the chill, right? And then, you go a little bit further than that. We talked last podcast on humidity, right? That's probably the next thing you'd want to go after, right, and control. But then there's so much more after that, right? You got temperature, you got humidity. Now I can dial that in, make you nice and comfortable. After that, then you start talking about what's in my air, right? And there's so much there to talk about. I mean, you could go down particles, you could go down carbon dioxide, you could go down carbon monoxide, you go down radon. I mean, where do you want to head, Nate? Like, what's a big problem that people want to solve,
Well, I think a common thing is allergens, and, people have asthma, respiratory stuff. What contributes to that?
I guess if you're thinking in that area, hey, what, would cause me to have allergies? You probably want to think about, do I have some sort of growth in my system? Maybe have that inspected, maybe have it cleaned, right? What kind of particles are floating around in my air, right? Is there big dust, or is there little particles that are in there from maybe smoke or other things in the house? Those kind of things would probably drive allergies, sickness, right?
Okay.
That kind of thing. So I don't know. What do you think?
I think just excessive dust levels can contribute to respiratory sensitivity and whatnot. Personal experience, my wife dealt with fatigue and breathing issues for a while at our last apartment, and when we moved, it turned out that there was a bunch of mold growing on the baseboards and in the closet and stuff that we just didn't see. So I know that plays into people's health.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, I mean, I've heard a lot of stories, talked to a lot of people. Personally, myself, right, I don't know this for sure, but probably about 10 years ago, got allergies bad, coughing, hacking in the evening, went on medication. And it continued for years, right? And the treatment was always, hey, take this med, take that med. This nasal spray will help you out, right?
Yeah.
Do that. But there would be certain seasons it would just get so bad where it would affect my sleep, all that stuff. And then, got a lot more involved in this like indoor air quality thing and actually changed out my HVAC system and just installed pretty much everything I could to make my indoor air quality better. Filter, UV lights, dehumidifiers, all that stuff to just try to address it. And, now off the medication, that kind of thing. Now, was there confirmation that was in my system? No, but now there's no meds that, so it's something to think about. That mold is, there's a lot of folks out there that are super sensitive to it, right? And it comes and goes throughout the year, right? So
I was talking with some older folks who just kind of talking about, did you ever remember mold in houses growing up? And, except for maybe an old basement or something that was just left untouched, but typically not. And I based on the jobs that I've seen, there seems to be a sharp spike in the quality of air that we're seeing in a negative way, like a bad air quality. There seems to be a spike in the last 5-6 years that I can remember. Just more jobs where people are complaining about what they're breathing and they're sick or they have a kid that's sick. Like I feel like we've just been getting a lot more calls and about that.
Do you think it's an awareness problem, or do you think people's homes are actually making them sick?
Both.
Okay.
I think people have been made more aware of what they're breathing ever since 2020. I also think there's potential correlation of you also in this time period you had a big housing boom where houses are being thrown up to meet the demand. So you have wood, which was also dealing with a shortage in 2020. Wood shortage, which meant some wood that was just left out in the rain. I was just out with the mold inspector at that one job.
Yeah,
and it's a 4-month-old construction home, and there's mold all in the crawl space. Probably just because the wood was just sitting, and it's an encapsulated crawl space, dehumidifiers. I mean, it's perfect condition, except you have mold growth on the subfloor. So I think it's a perfect storm of people are more aware. People are working from home, so they're running the AC more frequently, which means the unit has a less downtime.
Yeah.
There's maybe just poor quality of materials that's been sitting out in the rain, collecting this moisture and just waiting for the mold spores to stick. I don't know. I mean, it's kind of there's a lot of variables, and it's kind of hard to pinpoint what it could be, but I've just noticed a spike. And I think also on like realtors or either people ask realtors to inspect ducts. I know that's more of a common thing now.
Yeah.
Or realtors, recommend it. I think that's more of a thing of, clean ducts or updated ductwork, updated unit. All of that's starting to become common for when you sell a house.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Nate. I think people are becoming a lot more aware of it. I think they've maybe become hypersensitive to it. I think, the topic of mild toxins, right, have become a lot more open. People are starting to understand it maybe a little bit better. Things a sickness that they may have kind of lived with, now they're trying to, deal with, right, in other ways that medication can't, right? So I don't know, just seeing a lot of examples. Homes, there's a family in my neighborhood where I live, and the whole subfloor had like mold all under it, and it got the kid really sick, and they actually had to leave the home and spend a lot of time mediating it, removing it. And I've seen it a couple of times, haven't we, with new duct systems, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Half of the family leaves, and because half of them can't tolerate and half of them can, and they're kind of kind of split up there trying to deal with this problem and trying to figure out what it is. And then they get the kind of that bad actor removed from the house, and then boom, it's kind of back to normal, that kind of thing. So, but a lot of sensitivity to it, you can see that out there.
Yeah, I think there's just people are tending to be inside more. They're not outside for a good portion of the day, which studies show it's way higher issues for the indoor air quality.
Yeah.
Than compared to outside. There's more things in the air that we're breathing on a daily basis, on an hourly basis.
Well, just think through it a little bit, right? Like if you start in your garage and you're like, hey, what's in my garage? You got gasoline, oils, all that stuff, right? Volatile organic compounds, those things are going in. Maybe your house is attached to your garage. Are they coming into my home? Right now I've got exhaust fumes from my car. That's going into my house, and then you kind of move on in there. Maybe your laundry room's there. It's got a bunch of detergents and soaps and all that stuff. Yeah. And you move on in further. Now I get to the kitchen, right? And I've got a gas appliance maybe that wasn't properly ventilated. And now I got all these particles coming off when I fry stuff into the air. And now you're breathing that. And there's just, and then think about all those combustion appliances. Right now I got carbon dioxide being given off, and hopefully not much carbon monoxide, right? Which is a deadly odorless gas that people don't want to breathe. So, just as you walk through your home, just be kind of cognizant of all that stuff, right? Yeah. So now you got that, and then you couple it with the mold, and then I couple it with these artificial floors, and maybe some formaldehyde's coming off, right? Yep. So, you can see how the air quality in your home would be pretty bad. Yeah. And now I have a new house, and now I want to seal all that stuff up, right? So I spray encapsulate the attic, and, I encapsulate the crawl space, and then I put all this, stuff to seal the edges around, and then I make sure it's insulated properly, and then I don't bring any fresh air in. Now I've trapped all those VOCs, all that mold, all those particles I've getting off of my stove into my home. So, not to try to scare anybody, but it can be kind of a hazardous place. Huh?
It's not to be taken lightly.
Yeah. But I guess the good news is you can do a lot of stuff, right? You can ventilate properly, proper bath vents, proper hood vents. You can bring fresh air in to drop those carbon monoxide levels down, right? Get rid of those, dilute those VOCs down. Natural building materials, those kind of things to help. Yeah. Help control that stuff. We talked earlier about duct cleaning, filtration, UV lights, all that kind of stuff to treat the HVAC system. So, but yeah, a lot of folks will shop at Whole Foods to get healthy food, but what's the definition of healthy air? Right. Has anybody really defined that out there? I don't know. What's the acceptable parts per million of carbon dioxide?
That's a good question.
They have for deadly ones, right? Like carbon monoxide, you want to keep that close to zero, right? So, and they've got detectors for that, and everyone should have a detector that's got a gas
But a lot of the detectors only trigger at like 70 parts per million.
That's pretty low compared, some of them are higher than that, right? So,
or even more, and they recommend that, you should be out of the house if it's 30. So like even the detectors are having a hard time keeping up with picking up that stuff.
But going in the winter, that's something homeowners should definitely be super cognizant of. Do I have a gas furnace? Do I have a gas stove?
Is it piped correctly? Is it
Is it all working good?
Is it the proper double walled metal, and is it actually venting outside of the house and not just up into your attic? Or
so it's just a lot of stuff I guess consider in indoor air quality. Yeah, we could talk about it. I guess when we think about air quality, right, we want to think about I think we talked a little bit about it earlier, right? You want to think about temperature control, humidity control, right? Then particle control, and then bringing in fresh air, right? So there's some things we can do to help that, right? We can, filter the air, right? We can dehumidify or humidify the air. We can purify the air through, UV lights and other methods like that. And then lastly, you can bring in fresh air. You can dilute the problem down, right? So if you got a lot of carbon dioxide or you got a lot of VOCs, you can use like an ERV to kind of control that. Those would be kind of the big areas to focus on. But sometimes you don't know, you don't have a problem until you measure it, right?
I have a question for you, Nate. What would be your dream setup, HVAC system setup?
I don't know. I'm kind of a mini split. like cassettes and stuff like that in each room. I think that's. But in my dream scenario, I have a smaller house. I like minimalist is my style.
And what about for the indoor air quality?
I would have to have fresh air returns to balance out, and lots of windows to be able to open to kind of just have a natural breeze. Yeah, that'd probably be my dream scenario. But
is there anything else you guys want to talk about?
I mean, you're not going to ask me that question. What would the dream scenario be?
Okay. What would your dream scenario be for an HVAC system?
Oh, that's a great question. You know, I would think, you know, if you wanted to take combustion out of the equation, right? You'd have a heat pump that was sized maybe a little bit larger than you need in the summer, but not too big for the winter. And then, you know, you want to do filtration with some sort of really good filter system, like the April Air 1000 series, right? MERV 11 plus, maybe 13. And then onto that, we want a dehumidifier. And then not so much for me, but for my wife, I'd probably humidify the air for her in the winter, just because she has a lot of dry skin, dry, you know, hands, that kind of stuff. You know, it's good to keep that above that
nosebleeds
30%, you know, so, and then some sort of purifier to purify it, you know, and keep the ductwork to a minimum with enough returns, you know, and maybe some areas would have a mini split, those kind of things. But for some applications, a mini split would, you know, if you have a lot of dogs, that may not be the best solution for you, right? But they're a pretty good solution if you got relatively clean air. So in those kind of areas that you needed extra, maybe temperature control, you could use one, maybe the master bedroom or a bonus room or something like that. And then probably some antimicrobial ductwork in there, and definitely an encapsulated crawl space. Bathrooms are properly vented, and then, you know, you got a good hood vent over your kitchen stove. And then you can go back and forth, you know, with a gas stove. Like, I'm sure the pleasure of cooking on a gas stove is much better than that of electric stove. But now you're dealing with combustion in your home again, right? So it's something you got to kind of trade off, you know. So, but then when the power's out, combustion appliances are really nice, right? So they run on less amps and they're super hot heat and those kind of things. So I don't know, it's a trade that you kind of have to make. And some people like all electric and some people like gas furnaces.